to say cool is going to set a very high bar. So please let us welcome Sister Aisha Say
Cool. Peace and blessings. And I always start, people always ask me, why do I start by saying peace and blessings? One, we want to speak peace forward. We want to bring peace into the room that we're in. And we want to be reminded that we're here to evoke peace, to bring peace forward in our communities. So I'm just going to start with the thing that stays heaviest on my heart. And I woke up this morning thinking about Olivia Brown. Olivia Brown is a young girl who lived in, young woman who went to the high school where my office is, Harlem Renaissance High School, who was recently shot this summer, who lived in what's called a development now, but we know it as the projects, Lincoln Projects. I still see it as the projects until things change. Olivia Brown, I got the call that she was bleeding out, that she was that she was shot. Olivia Brown, when I got to the hospital, was what we call bleeding out. And the doctor walked into the room and said, we've done basically all that we could do. And the reason why I start with Olivia Brown is because often the Olivia Browns, whether it's female or male, are forgotten about. It's becoming business as usual. Oh, another kid got shot today. What shoes are on sale? Where do I get the sneakers from? Where the line is at? How long the line gonna be? You feel what I'm saying? In the community. This is the conversation with our young people, that death, shootings, murder in our community by the gun has become commonplace. And so as we sit here, we have in Congress still the universal background check, I think it's still in assembly, and micro-stamping, which could help secure guns from coming into our community. But that's not happening, it's not moving. Guns are too easy to get in our neighborhoods. I live in Harlem, not far from where Eric Holder, the United States Attorney General, lived. Not far from 8th Avenue, actually between 7th and 8th Avenue, where gun violence is rampant. And so we have not really done enough. And I say that, we have not done enough to stop situations like Olivia Brown. And I'll just say, with that, our young people are dying not just by the gun, but because they pulled the trigger. They have created their own sense of law in the community because they feel like our law has not served them, that they see their friends getting killed and nothing being done, that there's a great disparity in terms of how sentences are carried out. So there are a number of issues that are systemic to gun violence, and we have to take care of them. The others are homelessness. Right. What happens in our schools with them being the pipeline to prison, making young people feel like they don't have a place. We have not made them feel safe enough. Safe enough to come and talk to you when they want to pull the trigger. Safe enough to feel like in this room, there's room for them, that you will make a seat for them to be in the front without being insulted. Safe enough to have a voice that you utter their words instead of yours, because theirs are more important. So we have to be willing to stand up on this issue of gun violence, and I'm sure I want to give the other panelists an opportunity. I just wanted to put some of the issues out there. We have a lot of work to do. Parents are not talking to their children. I get more calls to talk to other folk children, and they're standing there, than they do with their own children. And I'll take those calls because it's about saving the life. But we have to not be afraid to talk to the children in our household, the ones that came out of our womb. And I say that because we can save our children. It's a conversation. Long before the trigger is pulled, the trigger is pulled. Long before the trigger is pulled, the trigger is pulled. Because there's stuff happening right before your eyes that you don't see. Because you don't want to pay attention to Bubba in your house. You just want him to go to school, come home, dark enough, go to sleep. Find out what's happening. Because that gun is probably under the bed, in the back of the closet, in the back of the drawer, waiting for the trigger to be pulled. And then when people meet, they meet at the hospital or at the jail, or they meet because their kids are co-defendants. So we have some work to do, family, and I'm so glad that we're not here just to talk about the issue, because I'm not here just to talk about the issue. I am hoping that we put an imprint on the mind and the spirit of everyone in this room so that you want to take action to do something about the violence that is happening under your window, in front of your door, outside your church, right around your organization, everywhere that you walk, eat, drink, sleep, that you will do something. My name is Aisha Sekou, and I thank you for the moment to give me this information.
I told you. We're going to alternate, and I'm going to go to my right and ask Mr. Frank if he would bring remarks. But before we do that, really quickly, I would like to acknowledge some of the very same people that we're here talking about and fighting for, and I want to make sure that we're not just talking about them, but we're also talking to them, and they are talking back to us, and we are listening. Conversations are bilateral engagements or multilateral engagements. They're not monologues. We have students from the Brooklyn Academy High School. Stand up. We want to thank you for being here. Brooklyn Academy High School is in one of the more risky neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and they have dealt with this issue in a very real, personal way. So we want to welcome them to being here with us. Mr. Frank.
Thank you. You know, I spoke at the House of Justice in Harlem about a month ago, right after Aisha spoke. This is like a recurring nightmare. I am peace. You know, I just had a surreal moment as I was looking out into the audience and looking at the panel, because 16 months ago, I was oblivious to the problem of gun violence in our country. And since then, I have worked with each and every member of this panel, and as I look out into the audience, I recognize Miss Jackie, Jenny from Moms, Yvette from OFA is in the audience, and a number of friends that during the course of the last 16 months, we've worked together to bring common sense measures to solving this ridiculous problem of gun violence that plagues our nation. And so, as I think about it, you know, how did I get here? How did somebody who's living a very quiet life in a community called Newtown, Connecticut, which I can assure you, most of you had never ever heard of 16 months ago, get on a panel at the National Action Network annual convention? Let me tell you how I got there. I was in my office on the morning of 12/14 when my secretary came in and said, there's been a shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. And of course, I have a daughter who was in one of the schools. And she had just finished up a year and a half prior at the Sandy Hook school. And at that point, we didn't know where the shooting was. And we didn't know what school was being affected. There were rumors that there was a second shooter, and all these helicopters started swirling, and the news media was descending on our town. And fortunately, it was not my daughter's school. She was not at Sandy Hook that day. But I lost 20 of my neighbors lost their kids, and 6 of our teachers were killed, including my daughter's 3rd grade teacher. So, you know, that night, I had a conversation with my daughter that I never ever expected I would have. And, you know, those were conversations that were occurring all across our town. And as I learned in the months subsequent, are conversations that occur all across our nation at all times. And that's just wrong. So a couple months later, I was at a rally in Hartford, and Pastor Sam Saylor was speaking, and I was the next person to speak. And he had lost his son, Shane, in Hartford a couple months before the Sandy Hook shooting. News media didn't cover it like they covered the tragedy in Newtown. Nobody knew his name like they knew the names of the 20 kids who were killed in my town. And he's going on and on saying, I am sick and tired of Newtown. Newtown this, Newtown that, Newtown got all the money, Newtown got all the media coverage. Nobody knows about my son Shane. And I'm a guy from Newtown, and I'm speaking next. So much like after speaking after Aisha, his theme seems to follow me. And then he said, I was in Danbury to hear the vice president speak. And I happened to be there as well. And the man next to me was crying, just the same that I was crying. And his tears were the same as mine. And the blood that his son bled is the same color as the blood from my son. And then he turned to me and he said, we were all Newtown. And when it became my time to speak, the light went on for me, and I realized it's not about Newtown. That we are all Newtown, yes, but we were all Chicago, and we're all New York, and we're all Detroit, and we're all in this together, because unless we come together, regardless of your race, religion, color, we are never going to solve this problem. So I'm proud to be here, just like I was when we rode across the 145th Street Bridge. It was an amazing reception, because together we're going to solve this. And there are simple measures that we are looking for that comply with the Second Amendment and will do a lot to reduce the scourge of gun violence that plagues our cities and our towns.
So Reverend Choon has just alerted us that our time is not as extensive as we thought. So I would ask panelists to be as concise as possible. And in that vein, I will now ask Mr. Juan Altamirano. Did I get that? Keep trying. Campaign manager for the Brady campaign.
First off, I want to say thank you for NAD for inviting us to be part of this panel. Like it was mentioned, I oversee working with victim survivors, faith community, and impacted communities across the country to bring about a change in our laws that have drastically affected, unfortunately, many communities across the country. So I want to give you a little background as to why I got involved in this issue. The reason I got involved was because when I was 5 years old, my parents immigrated from Mexico to the United States. I was raised in Southern California, an area that, during the 90s, and my dad, an area that was gang plagued, and an area that had high poverty. I saw gun violence on an everyday basis growing up. And that's a story that continues to plague this nation and communities across the nation. And I said to myself, I know how to organize. I know how to agitate the opposition. And so why not put my skills to the test and make sure that I bring something to the table and create a difference in our communities.